Okay, welcome to the STN sessions. You are here today with a great guy, Lee Giat, and he is going to be doing a session about producing powerful films on a budget. Flying Ostrich Media CEO Lee began making videos at the age of 7 and has since become an internationally acclaimed filmmaker and aerospace industry videographer. Giat produced TV and online video content in Russia, earned dozens of national production awards, and had 3 short films screened at Festival de Cannes. Take it away, Lee. We're so happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Hi, everybody. I can't see or hear you, but thanks for spending your time to learn and to get involved. I was an STN student myself, so I know how much I know you guys would have wanted to be at the actual convention, but Sherry's done an amazing job organizing it virtually, and we have an awesome team at STN. So thanks for being here. Excited for the session. We'll do questions at the end, but first I have a question for you guys, and that is, what is the one thing that makes a great filmmaker? I want you to think about what that could be. If there's one thing that makes a great filmmaker, what is it? And feel free to take notes throughout the session. I'll try and keep this as organized as I can so that you can take this information and run with it. But today we're going to be talking about how to make powerful cinema, and while working with a very low production budget. Now, when you're talking about making a low budget film, how much money do you think you have at your disposal? Well, according to Hollywood, a low budget film costs approximately $2.1 million to make. Okay, so we got to take it down a notch. Luckily, there is another budgetary category known as micro budget films, of which we only need $250,000. Yeah, doesn't feel very micro, does it? In other words, we need a whole new category, a place filled with driven STN students and broke college students alike. This is a budgetary category scientifically termed and coined by yours truly, the Yocto budget film. And that is something, a film created for $500 or less from your nearest parent, guardian, or GoFundMe. Now, money's great. I can't get enough of it. But there are 3 main concepts that you should focus on whenever you're bringing your next great idea to life. And that is your story, your cinematography, and your style. And for those of you taking notes, you can separate everything into these 3 sections. So go ahead if you want to write that down. Give you a second to get a pen out if you need to. But we're going to be talking about these 3 concepts and kind of detailing them from here. So while you're doing that, a little bit about me. I was an STN student back in 2016 and was able to travel to Russia that year with the Eurasia Foundation. And while in high school, I became a pilot through my dad, who was a flight instructor, and also got really interested in aerospace and astronomy. And so during college, I created a few sci-fi short films and a science show. And so I graduated from university at the University of North Florida with a degree in multimedia production. And since then, I've worked for companies like CBS and ESPN, and even went back to Russia to film a science TV show called Exploration Outer Space. And if you recognize that young lady over there in the 3rd picture, that's Emily Calandrelli. She now has a show on Netflix and is super famous on TikTok. Some of you might have seen her before. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We did astronaut training, all that sort of stuff. But these days I run a production company called Flying Ostrich Media, which we make videos for all sorts of aerospace companies. That's just how I pay my bills on a day-to-day basis. And currently I'm working on a documentary in honor of my dad, who actually recently passed away, unfortunately, in a plane crash. I'm using aviation, my passion for aviation and film, and kind of combining those to make a documentary about a flight that I'm going to be doing halfway across the world to deliver school supplies to underprivileged Latin American kids and schools. So we're raising money for that now and all that sort of stuff. I'll send links and all that stuff later if you want to check that out. I know that's a lot. And you're probably thinking, oh, geez, this guy's going to start telling us stories about his life. And oh my gosh, this is already really confusing. But actually, I want to ask you, what story do you want to tell? Now, most people would logically tell you to, whenever you're making a Yakto budget short film, is to write for your budget. Stay away from fantasies and westerns and horror timepieces and other genres that would require a lot of extra work to make convincing, to make it easy on yourself, right? So I say screw that. I say if your story idea seems like it requires a little bit of extravagant sets and Oscar-nominated actors and Disney magic to create, then you're in for an adventure. Do the best that you can, and with a little creativity, you can turn any story into a great short film. Whether it's a love story set in your school or a superhero blockbuster, all film genres require you to have one thing if you really want to make an impact on your viewers. So if you want to think about what that is, what is it that really impacts the audience? What drives your audience and keeps them engaged throughout your story? And some of you might be thinking maybe the character. And that's right, but more specifically, relatability to that character. This is one of the most important concepts in film and in screenwriting. It's kind of convenient for us. We like relatability because we're all very, very similar. We all know what it's like to lose someone you love, how hard it is to make an important decision that can change the course of your life entirely, all the way down to basic human survival. These are emotions that everybody can connect to. So write your story, drive it around some sort of relatable aspect to human being. Of course, if you're writing for comedy, we all know what it's like to stub your pinky toe against the side of a dresser. So anything as ridiculous as that to, human emotion, you can write your story based off of some sort of concept that humans can connect to, and that'll keep them invested and think about their own lives while they're watching whatever you make. So by understanding the message you're trying to get across, you can even make the most abstract of stories relate to your audience. It's the literal bridge that connects the viewer to your character. So what is this script supposed to look like? The most fundamental concept in screenwriting is separating your story into 3 acts. You can think of it as the beginning, the middle, and the end. And you can use this as a general outline for most stories. And this is known as Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, the beginning, middle, and end. So this is a great way of organizing this, again, for those of you taking notes. And so Act 1, this is the beginning of your film. It's time to introduce your main character as well as the main problem that they have to overcome. You need to establish the genre of the movie as well, and especially for short films, and this applies specifically to short films, do this as quickly as possible. Because if you're making a 5 to 10 minute movie, you don't have a lot of time to establish things. And the great thing about film is that you have both visual and auditory arts. You can see things and you can hear things. Sitcoms, for example, it's just people talking back and forth and using words to, be funny or be serious, all that sort of stuff. But you can use things in the background, props, the landscape, and all these other things we're going to talk about in a little bit to convey emotion, to start telling your story, to give you a sense of who's who and what's what, just without having your character say anything. And so use visual cues, establish who this person is, what they're going to be doing, and set the tone as early as you can. Act 2 is most of your film. This is where the obstacles come into play. You have to convey just how difficult these obstacles are for the main character or characters, how high the stakes are, and add elements that make the character struggle more when the audience least expects it as well. So maybe an important document goes missing, or somebody really close to the protagonist is in danger. And just when you think the situation couldn't possibly get any worse, it gets worse. I like to say that you are the god of your own movie, and basically your job is to do everything in your power to destroy your protagonist mentally and physically, if it applies to your story. And then when there's no way that our protagonist can make it out of this jam, they somehow get out of it, only to end up in a worse situation. So the best analogy I can come up with for Act 2 is pushing someone down the stairs, but at the end of the staircase, at the bottom of the staircase, is just a bunch of Legos. And we all know how painful that would be. And so obstacles, obstacles, obstacles for Act 2. And again, this is the meat of your film. Now, Act 3 is the twist. This is the final act of the movie where you need to identify a turning point in your story, where the plot takes some sort of severe, unexpected, dramatic twist that forces the main character to adapt. So I call these the oh snap moments. Like, you know, when we found out Darth Vader never killed Luke's father, but he was, you know, Daddy Vader all along. So that's a very great example of that. And, you know, when you start wrapping up your story and start to reveal the resolution, you know, what did we learn from this film? What did the main character learn from this film? What's what was the point of all of these obstacles and what's changed? Now you can start moving forward to what's next for the character. And whether you're making a sequel or not, end the movie with the future. Kind of, you know, you can think of Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 as not only the beginning, middle, and end, but also past, present, future, if you want to put it that way. And again, every story is a little bit different. So now when we're writing, a lot of us have this thing called writer's block. And it can be really, really hard to sit down and think about how this story is going to go and develop and all that stuff. And this is a quote that I absolutely love. This is a quote by Stephen King. I don't know if you guys know the movie It with the clown. Stephen King is a very famous horror writer. And he said, whenever your story is ready for a rewrite, cut it to the bone. Meaning when you just write something, write a bunch of stuff, write your entire idea, let your brain just gush out ideas, and then just start cutting down all of the excess fat. Start getting rid of all the extra stuff, even though it's painful. Revising a story down to the bare essentials is always a little like murdering children, but it must be done. So you can tell that's a Stephen King quote just by that last line. I love it. Amazing. But what he's trying to say is cut out the filler stuff. Whenever you're writing and you have this great idea that you think is going to be amazing for competition or amazing just for, you know, some fun side project that you're doing, cut out the filler stuff. Make sure every single second of your film contributes to your story. Because if a photo, right? Think about a photograph, a single frame, they say is worth 1,000 words. That means every single second of your film is worth 24,000. Just a little food for thought. So with that said, let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to bring this story to life. Given we don't have a lot of money, what equipment should we use? And in all honesty, despite what you might think and how much you want that new camera, we're on a budget. Use whatever you have, whatever floats your goat. Everybody has different resources available to them. You know, some people are better off than others. Some are very, very limited, maybe only have their cell phone. So if you need to, you know, borrow your school's tripod, borrow a friend's drone, borrow someone else's microphone, have them involved in your project if you know people with equipment. If you really, really want that cinematic feel. But if it comes down to it, use your phone. There's no shame in that. There have been movies in theaters that were shot on iPhones. So these days, there's no excuse. There's actually a lot of DSLRs that shoot worse than most smartphones these days. So I know you probably hear that all the time, but definitely take advantage of whatever you have available to you. And don't be afraid to ask. You know, it couldn't hurt to have, you know, a few extra people involved in a film, or maybe someone will let you borrow some equipment. And I know that, like, it's very, very intimidating. You know, there's a huge misconception that your equipment makes or breaks your production. And when everyone has all these fancy gimbals and you know, like a holster full of lenses and, you know, like all these crazy expensive things, you know, it can be very intimidating, but just know that your story is ultimately king. And the equipment is just the tool that you use to carry that story to the screen. So shift your focus away from equipment and focus and master these three things. These are the essentials of cinematography: your camera and talent blocking, your production design, and color theory. And color theory also has a little bit to do with lighting, which we'll talk about. Lighting is very, very important, if not the most important thing you can do with cinematography. So you'll get to play around with that a little bit. But let's go ahead and talk about camera and talent positioning. By the way, guys, we're going to do questions at the end, so just write everything down. I just want to make sure that we get through everything because we are a little bit low on time for today just because of Zoom stuff. So let's go ahead and talk about camera and talent blocking or positioning. It's pretty self-explanatory. First, you have to, and if you don't, you have to do this first. You need to know and perfect your execution of shot compositions, close-ups, medium shots, wide shots, all that sort of stuff, rule of thirds, and camera movements, pans, trucks, arcs, dollies, all of these things you need to know like the back of your hand, know how to execute it, know how other people expect you to execute it, and just know production standards, when it comes to creating a sequence of many different shots, there's so much wiggle room for creativity to step in. So we're going to watch a very quick scene here from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This is the iconic showdown. Some of you have probably thought of or seen this before. It's a 10-minute scene. We're not going to watch all 10 minutes. We're going to watch maybe a minute. But I just want you to pay attention to the camera, how it's framing the shot, where the characters are, and why they decided to do it this way. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. We're going to play about a minute of it. Let me know, Sherry, because you're the only one that can talk here for now. Let me know if there's an issue with sound. I want to make sure you guys hear this. We're going to start about here. Just let me know if there's an issue with sound.
We're not hearing it, Lee.
So, do you guys hear that okay? I see the chat here. I just want to make sure you guys were able to hear that because we're going to watch another clip as well.
Lee, can you hear me?
I hear you.
We didn't hear it. I put it in the chat, so something's not.
You didn't hear anything at all? Did you hear at least my speaker or something?
No, I did.
Oh, wow. Oop. No, I don't want to do that.
You try to turn up your internal volume a little bit?
Yeah, I'll probably do that in a second. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But basically, let's go ahead and change the slide here. So in that scene, as you guys were watching, remember the audience can only see what's in your frame. They can't see, like a lot of people have the urge to just set the camera down on a tripod or even just hold the camera, at eye level, just normally as they're filming. But the audience doesn't see that. They only see what the camera is seeing. Don't just set the camera down and press the red button. Think about what you want your audience to feel. and use your camera and your talent positioning as your tool to make them feel that way. The fact that most of these shots that you just saw were extreme close-ups, and it's okay if you didn't hear it, I mean, the song is great, but the fact that they were all extreme close-ups for the most part, you start to feel a little bit of uneasiness in the situation and how high the stakes are in what's happening here. You notice the little details, the sweat, the dirt, the grit in their teeth. You start to really get invested in what's going on, even after watching for only a minute. So that's how important it is to utilize camera talent and positioning. So again, write down any questions you might have. We'll get to those in just a little bit. So now this is where positioning our camera and talent meets with production design. So this is a scene from Green Book. It won Best Picture at the Oscars like 2 or 3 years ago. And this is a conversation between a wealthy piano player and a random guy that wants to work for him. So just by looking at this scene, which one do you think is the wealthy piano player? Which one do you think is some dude asking for a job? And you're probably leaning toward the guy on the right. That's the piano player who's super, super wealthy. And you can say it's because of his gold robe or, you know, all the fancy stuff around him and the throne looking thing. But if you look at the frame itself, the piano player is literally above that other guy. Quite literally above him. Just because, you know, the filmmakers decided to position him a little bit higher and have that other guy a little bit lower. And if you don't believe me that this is an actual thing, check this shot out. This is a low angle shot, literally pointing up toward the superior character in this scene, and the inferior character, the camera is higher, pointing down, in what's called a high angle. So you can use subtle little things just by where you put the camera, as basic as that, to set the tone in your scene and win yourself an Oscar. And you know, these are camera tricks that anybody can do. You don't need, you know, millions and millions of dollars to make this happen. And so all the films that we talked about cost many millions of dollars to produce, but how can we make our films convincing with $500 or less, right? Our Yocto budget. And the first thing we have to think about is our story and how we can make our set and character design reflect our script. And you have to remember that filmmaking gives you the freedom to tell whatever story you want to tell. So don't let your small budget intimidate you. Just work with what you have. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a few minutes. But before I do, I want to talk about color theory. Color theory is one of the cheapest and most valuable filmmaking tools out there. It involves lighting and colored wardrobe, scenery, props to convey some sort of tone, decision, or some sort of underlying message. And so different colors naturally represent different things. Red can be love or death. Green is earthy and represents life. Orange is ambitious or adventurous. Blue is sad and isolated, and so on and so forth. And you can combine certain colors to build your scene. If you look at the two distinct colors used in each of these two examples here from La La Land and the Joker, you'll notice the two main colors in each of those, right? So this one is what, purple and yellow. Purple is here, yellow is here. These are both kind of purplish and these are both kind of yellowish, but notice purple and yellow are opposite each other on this color wheel. And this is blue, this is orange, blue, and orange. This is what's known as a complementary color relationship. And you've seen this before. You've seen this everywhere. I mean, Christmas, green and red. Mardi Gras, also purple and yellow. A lot of universities do this as well when they're deciding their color things. But it just naturally looks good when you have colors that are opposite each other on this wheel. So blue and orange, green and red, purple, yellow. And feel free to experiment a little bit, right? It doesn't have to be complementary, but these colors, when they're opposite each other, they complement each other and make it look very appealing to the eye. That's why these are so, it feels so good to look at. It's just, you know, just natural. So what I'm trying to get across is that color and light will really help you in telling your story. Without having your character speak a word, you can establish the tone you can establish the emotion, and you can establish a lot of different things. I mean, think about the Joker, right? Just this quick little example. The Joker is meant to be the craziest, most insane person in that film, but just using emotions that connect to us, sadness, isolation, a little bit of trying to be, you know, a decent human being, made him crazy. But he ended up being the most normal person in that entire movie. You connected with the Joker. If you watched the Joker, you connected with the Joker more than you connected with regular people that aren't mentally insane. Not saying you're mentally insane, but you see where I'm going with this. And so how do we do this on a budget? And with that, I would just like to show you. So in my sophomore year of college, my team and I competed at a film festival, very similar to STN, where we had 1 week, no more than 1 week, to shoot and edit a complete 5-minute short film. And in this situation, the logical thing to say to yourself is, okay, let's make something relatively simple. That'll give us more time to work with so that we can tweak things as we go along. But because I'm a conceited douchebag that likes a challenge, we decided to make a space movie, complete with frame-by-frame CGI in 4 days, not a week. We made this in 4 days with a budget of $430 that we just gathered from, you know, whatever we could. So while we're watching this, I'm going to check the audio before we start, but I want you to pay attention to everything we talked about so far. So the relatability to the character, and trust me, these days I would change a lot about this film just because I have, you know, the knowledge and the hindsight. But this film is now on Amazon Prime. It's screened at Cannes, won many awards. Actually, these two back here too. And so for a student film made in 4 days with not a lot of money, this is a great example of what you could be doing with very limited resources. So pay attention to the relatability, the progression of the story through Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, the beginning, middle, and end. Character and camera positioning, how I decided to position all these different elements in the story. And as well as the set design and color theory used in the film. There's a lot more deep symbolism represented in the colors in this film that we'll get to in a second. But let's go ahead. Let me just make sure that you guys can hear the audio. Let me check this out. Audio. Here, let me know if you guys hear this. Test 1, 2. I don't know if you guys hear that.
Haley, it's Sherry. I'm still not hearing anything but your voice. Yes, heard that. Lee, now I can't hear you. Mhm.
Okay, you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I see what I have to do. I have to switch it. So I was just saying, pay attention to everything we talked about. We're going to go over this. There's a couple hidden things in there. And by the way, the equipment that we used, this is it. This is a dinosaur of a DSLR. It's a Nikon D7-100. I've had this for, oh, I have no idea how long, with a little, you know, shotgun mic. Nothing more than an 18 to 55 millimeter lens, very standard, maybe a $500 camera, now probably $250, and then just this LED light with the blue gel. That's what these are called, gels, if you didn't know that already. So we used very minimal equipment, stuff that you have and more, most likely. So let's go ahead and watch. I'm gonna go ahead and switch the audio here, and I'll see you in 5 minutes.
Look, I know how much this means to you, but I can't wait 7 years, Tom. You have to decide. It's either me or this stupid trip.
Just give me a minute. Circle back on chaser confirmed.
We have main engine cut off flight.
Copy on Miko. Hey Tom, all Chaser 1 systems are looking good and we are on course to Titan. We'll talk tomorrow for approach and landing. Otherwise,
Good work.
Hey, Tom, is that you?
Yeah, it's me. Listen, babe,
You were right. You were right. I shouldn't have stopped you from going. It was selfish and stupid, and this is who you are, and I can't change that. When you come home, I'll be here. I love you. Baby, please say something.
Luna, can I ask you something?
What?
When I come home, will you marry me?
ground control to Chaser 1. Is everything okay? Ground control to Chaser 1. How do you read? Tom. Tom, do you hear me?
All right, you guys hear me? All right. So we turned a movie about an astronaut going to Saturn's moon Titan into a love story that most people can relate to. This was done in college with barely more than $400 and 4 days for writing, shooting, and editing. And so even though it's not perfect, not near perfect, I think we did a relatively good job of telling a story. And so let's go ahead and dissect it a little bit. And so Act 1, we established the protagonist, Tom. He has to decide between going on this once-in-a-lifetime trip to Titan to colonize Saturn's moon Titan, or his girlfriend Luna. This is the main conflict established early in the film. He decides to give up his trip to space and stay on Earth with her when he, goes to take out the wedding ring in the bathroom and commits to that wedding proposal. But she storms out and ruins the whole thing, but things start spiraling out of control, all leading to the obstacles in Act 2. And so Act 2 is when everything starts, it's like the Lego staircase analogy. Just starts falling and falling down the stairs until things, keep getting worse and there's no end to it. But he can't reach Luna. There's no data up there or whatever. He's getting further and further from Earth. And just when you think everything is fine, he finally gets that signal. He talks to Luna for a little bit. He apologizes, or she apologizes, whatever. The asteroids hit. And that kind of, you notice the small little shots of like the warnings in the spaceship and all that sort of stuff, but you're more focused on the actual conversation that they're having, as opposed to everything else. So you when you least expect it, just hit the audience with another bang, quite literally, yeet your character with an asteroid. And so Act 3, because this is such a short film, it's only 5 minutes long. That's the limit to that specific contest that we competed in. Act 3 was left up to the audience, and since the movie was so short, we ended it on a cliffhanger. But we kind of understand that ending. The moral of the story. He knows he wants to go home. He's made his decision. He has, we have no idea as an audience what's going to happen to him, whether he even survived. But overall, he made his decision by the end of the film. It's time to go back home to Luna. And so I want to know if you caught anything while you were watching that. The lighting throughout the film was exaggerated a little bit on purpose. Take the shot. Most of the film, actually, the entire film, as opposed to, except for this shot right here, Major Tom's face was lit half blue, exactly half blue, and half orange. And now think about why we would have done that. Not just because it's complementary, these colors are complementary, but why would we do that? What color is Earth? What color is Titan? Right? So these represent his split decision, literally split right down the middle. He's trying to decide when he's going to make, or what decision he's going to make whenever he's kind of in the middle of this situation. And the only shot that his face is neutrally lit is this one right here. When he's made his decision, he's going to propose to this girl, and that's it. And now we're running a little bit low on time, so I'm going to start speeding things up a little bit. But if you need me to reiterate anything or explain anything later on, let me know once we start with questions. But this movie is exactly 5 minutes long and is not an original idea. It's actually based on David Bowie's Space Oddity, the song Space Oddity, which, by the way, is exactly 5 minutes long. So if you take this film, mute it, and play it with that song, Space Oddity, it will match up scene by scene. And if you can see by the lyrics here, the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. That's a lyric in the song, and you can see, the press kind of chasing him out as he walks to the rocket. Tell my wife I love her very much. Duh. And ground control to Major Tom. Your circuit's dead, is something wrong? That was the big explosion that happened. So we just tried to be as creative as we could with this, especially, in competition, specifically in competition. But the reason we did that is because it's not a sitcom, it's a film. And with film, you're much more free to do whatever you want. You have video, you have audio, stuff on camera, tools off camera, and just feel free. It's a playground. Do whatever you want with it. It doesn't have to be just talking back and forth, making you laugh or whatever. You can use visual cues, auditory cues, sound effects, all that sort of stuff to tell a story. And so this is kind of a little bit of the behind the scenes. We were able to do this with barely, $500 just because we took advantage of the world around us. Because I'm a pilot, we turned one of the small planes I fly into the spaceship. You see, we put a green screen over the wing here and just had a tripod on, literally in this tiny space. For the control room, there it is, we just went to our local news station. And by the way, since you guys are students, you have what I like to call student privilege. where restaurants and all this sort, basically anywhere you want, museums, they will let you go in and film for free if you ask nicely enough. Just send an email, say, hey, I want to shoot this film, and I want to, come into your space and do that stuff. And then we used a toy Hot Wheels spaceship to make the spaceship, the exterior of the spaceship. And so I'll send links for all that stuff afterwards if you want to check out the film. But let's talk a little bit about style, and then we're going to start wrapping this up. Lucky for you, there's a simple and easy trick that you can use to develop your filmmaking style. And what worries many of us today is that there's so many people making videos and filmmaking and getting into filmmaking and all that sort of stuff. And so, with technology advancing and all that sort of stuff, things are moving pretty fast, and it can be really anxiety inducing, especially from, a job perspective. 10 years ago, if you wanted to get an aerial shot, you had to rent a helicopter. If you wanted steady footage, you needed to wear this crazy thing. If you wanted 4K video, well, what the heck is 4K video? It didn't even exist. So the question is, we're in a world where everyone wants to be a filmmaker, how can you stand out? And now I'm sure a lot of you know who this guy is. This is Casey Neistat. He's a famous YouTuber. He has a very amazing, unique style to his videos. Very DIY, very handmade, playful films. And amazing storyteller, one of the greatest storytellers of our time, in modern production at least. And so there's just one problem with Casey Neistat. His style is so unique that many of us have gone through what's called the Neistat syndrome, what I like to call the Neistat syndrome, where we start buying the bendy tripods and electric skateboards and only edit with Arial bold and all caps. And, what I'm trying to say is, don't try to be Casey Neistat. Don't try to be somebody at all. It worked for him, right? He has over 12 million subscribers, but it doesn't mean it'll work for you. More importantly, it won't make you proud of your work, because if you're trying to copy somebody else, you know deep down that you're not being true to what you can accomplish. So feel free to get inspiration from filmmakers and other people. Take note of great things that Casey Neistat has done and other filmmakers have done to get where they are, but the key is not to become a carbon copy. But this doesn't help much, right? Okay, so I'm not Casey Neistat, but I still don't know what my filmmaking style is. And that simple trick, Nike said it best, just do it. Most ideas, and listen to this, most great ideas are found, not thought of in advance. Ideas are found through experiences, through just thinking and pondering about your next great film. Just let it come to you. You think Tim Burton sat down and said to himself, hey, my style is going to be stop motion with a splash of Halloween spirit? You think Christopher Nolan said, hey, my movies are going to be desaturated but heartfelt a bit to convey the dark complexity of the human soul. You think Michael Bay said to himself, hey, my movies are going to be absolute garbage? No, they just are garbage, Michael. They just are. And so find your style. Let it come to you. Don't try and chase something that you're not. Just let it happen. Create whatever feels right. And so all of you interpreted all this information a little bit differently, but we still have a question that we don't have answered, and that is, what makes a great filmmaker? The one thing that makes a great filmmaker. It's not the equipment. It's not your set design. And actually, it's not even your story. A good filmmaker is a filmmaker that's always learning. When you guys leave high school or middle school, wherever you are right now, off into the real world, hopefully a world not in complete shambles, take initiative to improve your skills, be open to criticism, and never stop growing as creatives. And so I hope this was helpful to you. I guess we have a little bit of time for questions. Here is all of my social media stuff. This is my social media, this is my website, and that's the flight that I'm doing later this year if you want to check those out. So Sherry, I will hand it off to you.
Great. You want to stop? Well, you can share your screen for a second and then I'll pop.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? I haven't seen any in the chat. But I have one. I'm fascinated with the 4 days that it took to accomplish that. Very impressive. Did you run into any obstacles? And if so, what did you do to work past them?
Oh yeah, I mean it's all about improvising. You know, like we had some issues with the airport, and they didn't allow cameras there, even though we called in advance. We had, the script ended up running a little bit too long, and we had to cut some stuff out, kind of like that quote that we talked about earlier. Just cut parts out that you don't need. There were many obstacles, but I think overcoming them in a very high stakes, stressful situation is just improvising. Do with what you got, and then something good will come out of it if you just remain calm, do the best that you can, and that applies for you guys in competition too. So just remain calm, do the best that you can, and make some awesome stuff.
I am getting a couple questions. A funny one, what floats your goat, Lee? But I'm going to take that as, what's most fulfilling? What's something that keeps you going? Because we all know in production, it can be really long hours. Sometimes in the beginning levels, there's not great pay. So,
Yep.
So what keeps you going?
I think that, the worst day on set is still better than the best day anywhere else. I mean, I love that it's like, getting friends together, people that you love, people that you hang out with, or even professionals, people that are above you and you can learn from. It's just a playground for your brain. And of course, when you're making, in my line of work, sci-fi stuff and space stuff, I film for aerospace companies, so I get to travel, I get to see new places, and every day is different. It's not, and I know a lot of you are in this field because it's something new every day. You don't want to be at an office 9 to 5 and doing that, busy work for some other dude. I mean, you want to have some fun in this thing called life. So it's fun. That's the answer.
Yeah, I feel the same. I'm not a stay behind the white picket fence kind of girl. And so I think you do know inside if you're doing the wrong thing. So I just like to encourage people to take those risks and take the chances, because it is very fulfilling. We have another question about editing. What comments do you have when it comes to editing your footage into a full story?
So I would say shoot to edit. I would say, if I understand your question correctly, organize, and correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, try and do as much pre-planning as possible, make shot lists. If you have time for it, make storyboards, have a plan for your shoots so that when you come back to edit, you're just putting things where they belong and then tweaking a little bit, color grading, using effects if you need to, all that sort of stuff. And don't forget about sound. Sound is like the most neglected thing. A lot of, I remember when I was in STN, a lot of kids had great videos, but their sound was awful. So invest a lot of your time and money when you have that opportunity into your sound as well. But shoot to edit, plan as much as you can, and editing will be a breeze. Don't spend hours trying to fix things later on. Don't fix it in post.
Right. I had to be very patient as a producer. I was ready to go on set, but you need the right lights. Why is that sound check taking so long? But as you're saying, if those things aren't right, then you lose it all. We do have more questions coming in. You're very popular and a wealth of information. We only have a couple more minutes. So I'm going to combine one of them that was talking about your short film, coming up with the main idea. That's going to be combined with where do you get your inspiration from? So can you let us know a little bit about that?
So I think my main film inspiration would be Bob Zemeckis. He's the director of Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, Flight, an absolute storytelling genius. So I would watch his films and you'll see, I guess, just how a beautiful story is told. Absolutely love that man. But I think it's just, finding ideas. And there, I don't know if a lot of you might know the band OK Go. They make these crazy music videos in zero gravity. They've done one, Rube Goldberg machines. A lot of really cool innovative music videos that like every time you watch one, every single one, you're like, how did they even think of that? And again, ideas are found, you know, they just come at you through life. Don't try and force an idea, just write stuff. If it doesn't come to you, just wait a little bit. It's okay. I don't know how ideas work, but that's just how they work. Just let it come to you. And then once you think of it, then just, I guess, see how you can convey that into a story with characters and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I've heard several people that do this, whether writers, directors, cinematographers, actors, keep some sort of little notebook with you, or these days just use your phone. But you see stories out in life at a restaurant. Somebody might say that famous line, you know, like, here's looking at you, kid, or something, and you're like, brilliant, because we only think from our life experiences. And so we have to get out there in order to get those stories in. I'm going to wrap it up with this last question. How long was it before you started gaining traction and having success for your films?
Honestly, I think, you know, only recently, you know, I'm very grateful that my company is doing very well in these, you know, these days. You know, we got a new a studio. We're moving in actually next month, and we're doing very, very well. But it, you know, I don't know. You know, traction and success is. I thought when I was about your age, guys, that like, you know, being a famous YouTuber and being, you know, getting awards and all that sort of stuff like that means nothing anymore, you know, because I can win all these awards and be, you know, making half-assed videos every day, you know, just trying to feed the YouTube algorithm and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm a perfectionist. I want to be happy with what I'm making. So I take a little extra time. I found a different outlet, which is videography, and you know, especially in the aerospace industry, I have time to work on my videos. I write, shoot, and edit a little bit slower than most people these days, but it's, you know, it allows me to get those ideas flowing and to get creative. So I think just do what makes you happy, and the money and the success will come. As long as you're doing what you're passionate about, then other people will see that, they'll want to join you and create some awesome stuff.
Well, thank you so much, Lee. I am sure this is only the beginning of great things for you. Having just met you within the past couple months, I sense your passion. It comes across well, and I appreciate you sharing all those resources with us today. So check out Flying Ostrich Media, guys. Keep an eye on Lee. And again, thank you so much for sharing your talents. We'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, Sherry. Thank you, guys. If you have any questions, you can reach me on Instagram. I'll be happy to, if you didn't get a chance to do anything now. So talk to you soon. Thanks, guys, and good luck.
Bye.